Hello, Harshal, and thank you for joining us once again.
Hello.
I'll just take a minute and I'll wait because we have our participants joining in. So
Sure.
we'll just take a minute and then we are ready to get started. Hope everything's
Absolutely.
well at your end.
Yeah, it's going great. You know, things are slowly opening up here in the US. I don't know, Mumbai, I think another 2 weeks of lockdown, I guess, but
Yeah,
things are opening up. I guess in Bangalore, I see some clinics opening up. So India is
right,
opening up too, I believe. Yeah.
right. Well, great. Let's get started. A very good evening to all our attendees and welcome to the Aesthetic Medicine Digital Series. So last week, Mr. Harshal Limaye, he joined us live for a session on how to find new patients for your practice, the patient journey. And today, he is back with us to share insights on how should an aesthetic medicine practice spend on marketing. So, for those of you who are joining us on our first session today, Mr. Harshal Limaye is the founder and CEO of Marketing.Doctor, an all in one practice growth platform that leverages 360-degree digital marketing strategies to acquire new patients, re engage existing patients, improve patients' online experience, streamline the front desk, and justify marketing spend. He is a certified aesthetic consultant from the Aesthetic Academy USA. So the Aesthetic Medicine India team is has been persistently working towards planning and organizing sessions that help the aesthetics community grow its business and make our entire AM digital series a truly knowledge sharing platform. So I've been saying this session after session, but if you have missed any of our past webinars, all you need to do is log on to our website. That's aestheticmed.in for the recorded sessions. Also, if you see right now in your screen at the bottom in the center, you would have two options, one of a chat box and one of a Q&A. So please do feel free to leave your suggestions in the chat box for me for aesthetic medicine on webinar topics that you look forward to or any particular expert speaker that you want to hear through our webinars. So you could leave all those feedback and comments into our chat box. For the Q&A box, that's for any questions that you may have for Harshal today, our expert speaker for this session. Please key them into the Q&A box and we will take them up at the end of the discussion. So the chat box is for your feedback to aesthetic medicine and the Q&A box is for our speaker, Harshal. With that, over to you, Harshal.
Thank you, Shriyal, and thank you, Aesthetic Medicine India, for giving me this opportunity. I'm just going to take a quick look at the participants, and I do see a lot of familiar names there, so that's great. Thanks for joining us. I also see new names. So anyway, all of you, I want to welcome you to today's session. This is part 3 of our webinar. The first part was on innovative methods of marketing in COVID crisis. Second was how to find patients. Today, we are going to talk about how much should you spend on marketing. So with that, let me actually just share my screen. And there you go. All right. Shil, can you just give me a thumbs up that you can see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, great. All right, so how much should you spend and specifically as an aesthetic medical practice, how much should you spend on marketing and how? Now, this is the topic for today. We are going to discuss 5 things. One is what marketing budget is right for you. Second topic is we'll discuss setting smart marketing objectives. Third, we'll discuss understanding the patient acquisition cost and the return on investment. Fourth, we'll discuss maximizing your spend on Google or Facebook. And last, we will just kind of go through some tips for this COVID crisis or during this period. So let's begin. I mean, how much to spend, that's like the most popular question that I get from my clients. And before we talk about how much to spend, I want you to think about marketing as an investment. It is an investment to grow your assets, to build your assets. So if any of you were with me on the last webinar, we kind of talked about what are the essential marketing assets that you would have as a practice. So there are really, four assets that are really essential: your website, your Facebook and Instagram page, YouTube channel, and then any kind of email database that you build or a patient database that you build. So having said that, right, I mean, think about marketing is an investment to grow these assets. I mean, these assets are not just going to grow by themselves. You need to put in time, you need to put in some money. And that is what is marketing about. Now, just like any other investment, um, there are, just like you make any financial investments to build your wealth, and you make some good investments and you make some bad investments. And in marketing, there are good investments and there will be bad investments. So if you're telling yourself, or if your marketing agency is trying to tell you that, hey, we will only make good investments, that's not the complete truth, and you know that. So what is important is to understand and to learn what is a good investment, how to measure the investment, and that is really what we'll cover in this session. Now, some of the characteristics that marketing investment has, they're very similar to what you have in your financial investments, right? I mean, you should be able to calculate the return on your investment. The investments that you make, they're going to be long-term. Some of them are going to be short-term. You need to understand that these investments will also have a lock-in period. So if you don't give enough time, which is, you call as a lock-in period, you're not going to make anything out of that investment. Again, risk versus reward. So you have to take some risks. As I said, you're gonna make some bad investments, and you need to really quickly figure out how to change those bad investments to good investments. So there's some risk that you're going to take, but hey, you have to take that risk if you want to be rewarded. Another point you should also try to think about is, are you underinvested, or sometimes are you over invested? But most likely, you're probably, you want to think about, are you under invested, right? I mean, if you don't, just like your financial assets, if you're not investing enough, if you're not saving enough, you're not going to build that next egg at the end of your career or in your retirement. Same way, in this practice, right, you're starting this practice, if you underinvest in it, you're not going to be able to grow it or build it. And the last point, very similar to other investments, is value investing. So how do you pick what investment is going to bring that value to you, right, over time? What investment is cheaper right now, right? For example, let's just say, I mean, to give an example, if ad rates have gone down in the last 2 months, in this period, as brands are pulling back on the ads, people are home, so obviously there's limited things that you can market to them. So I mean, there are some opportunities that are there in the market today where you can run your ads. The media is a little cheaper, the ads are a little cheaper. Can you invest in them now? So that is what I call as value investing. So having said that, let's just dive, dig right into the topic of what marketing budget is right for you. And I'll cover this over a couple of slides, but really, let me just give you the short answer to it, right? I mean, the short answer is there is no standard formula. There is no set number that works for everyone. But having said that, we do have some rule of thumb that, typically you would spend about 10 to 15% of your projected annual revenues, or your total sales that you're making in a year. 10% of that, 15% of that, that's what you want to spend on marketing. Some people spend less, some people spend more, but that's really the average. And now, when you're thinking about this, what are the factors that you should consider when you're thinking about a budget? So there are really 4 factors, or 4 broad factors that are important. Number 1 is you got to look at the life cycle of your business, right? What stage your practice is in. Are you like a new practice? less than 2 years? Or are you like a growing practice? Or are you like a mature practice? So depending on what stage you are in that business life cycle, your budget varies, right? The other things are what are these specialties or what are these services that you provide? Your budget depends on that. What are the markets that you operate in? I mean, what is that? What is the location you are in? I mean, if you're in Mumbai, there is going to be competition. You have to factor that into when you're setting your budget. Um, and then lastly, how many providers you have in your practice? I mean, are you the sole practitioner who is just doing everything, or you have more than one doctors on board? Obviously, if you're more, you can take more patients. The intake is higher, so yeah, you want more patients, and that's where the budget has to be adjusted. So just to dive a little bit more into this business life cycle, I mean, I'm just the next slide here. You can see the different phases of your practice. For people who are just starting out, like you're on the left-hand side, you're just starting up. The most important factor to consider when you're just starting up your practice is this business or is this practice even sustainable, right? Or is it something that is going to keep this sustainable interest in the market that you're operating? So really, you're going to look at your services. You have to look at your competition, and really always you're assessing yourself. But I'm just starting out. Am I going to be able to sustain interest in this business? So that's where your focus is really as a startup. Now once you're past that phase and you're into the growth phase, you are concerned about tracking your revenues, right? To your top line. How much are you making? How much are you bringing in every month, month over month, year over year? So that is that growth phase that you are into. And then you move on to your mature phase, where that's the point where that's the stage in your business life cycle or your practice life cycle that you need to focus on profits, and the returns that you're getting, and what is the lifetime value of a patient that you're creating, and things like that. And we'll talk a lot about the ROI and LTV, lifetime value, and all that in the slides that are coming along. But that is your focus at a mature stage of business. And you might be in a stage where you might be declining. I mean, take a look at this period where let's say you're a multi-clinic operation, and maybe you're closed down for 2 months, and you're not going to be able to keep all the clinics open. Maybe you have to shut down one of them or something like that, right? So that could happen, and you need to really look at that as well. I mean, that is the decline stage that you probably might get into, and you have to make those decisions. So really, the focus at that stage is retention. How do you retain your current patients, and you're looking at maybe new growth initiatives. Maybe you want to start a retail revenue if you're not doing that. If you want to start selling products online, or things like that, right? So really, you must understand how you fit into this business cycle before even you think about what budget you want to spend on marketing, because every stage has a different way that how you're going to spend that money, right? So what does that mean, right? So the next slide kind of gives you a template of where you would spend that money. And these are some numbers from the US, but you can just relate those to your practice in India or wherever you are from. So again, these three stages, I mean, you're between 0 to 2 years of your practice. Let's say in the US, your income is around $500,000 or $1 million per year for that kind of a practice. And when you're in that stage, what would you spend on? I mean, obviously the basic ones that you would spend on are website, your SEO, your Facebook page, your Instagram page, your YouTube channel. These are really the core assets that you're building. So you really want to focus all your spend or most of your spend on building these assets out, because these are in the long term, right? Um, you could actually try email marketing. It's much cheaper to do email marketing. You're not going to spend that much money. You may want to think about some kind of a PR if you're just kind of opening up or just opened up. And you may also want to think about investing in some kind of a marketing software just to kind of make your operations run smoothly. So that's the first, the first tier. When you go to the next tier, which is, let's say practice between running for 3 to 5 years, they pull in about $1 million or $2 million revenue. Now you can obviously, take a lot of that money, and maybe at 15% of that money or even more, put that into ads, start spending on Google ads, start spending on Facebook ads, you start spending on your social media marketing, and start doing marketing automation. So you do everything that you're doing on tier one, and then you add on these activities when you're in that stage. And then the next stage, or the last stage, is when you're really mature and you're really grown into a multi-clinic, very successful practice. You're drawing like between $3 million to $5 million a year. And you, again, of course, you do everything else that you're doing in tier one and tier two, but you could maybe add more money to the ad spends that you're doing. Maybe you could think of a TV commercials, because those are not cheap. TV commercials are not cheap, so you really need to have a good revenue and a good budget to spend on those kind of things. You could spend more on PR. You could go to news channels. You could spend on more like billboards. Put your sign up in a mall. When malls open up, people are going to come in next to salons, next to all those beauty parlors in the mall, or things like that, right? Where you get your traffic and they see you as an aesthetic practice in the neighborhood. So these are just some guidelines in terms of how would you spend your marketing budget. Again, remember, based on the stage you are in, the stage you are in your practice, right? Just some examples. This is really purely based on our research, but these are the kind of spends that like a med spa or a plastic surgeon or a dermat would do in the US again. And you would see that med spas, they spend around 3,000 to 10,000 per month, average about 4,300. Plastic surgeons, they spend more. I mean, they're doing surgeries. Their ticket sizes are even bigger, obviously. I mean, you get a breast augmentation done in the US, it's going to cost you anywhere between $6,000 to $10,000, and things like that, right? So obviously they spend much more than the med spas. And then there is the dermats. Now, again, if the dermats are, there are lots and lots of dermats who are obviously also getting into aesthetic procedures or cosmetic procedures. So if you're doing that as a dermat, then your budget is going to look more like the med spa. But these are just some benchmarks that we have from our research and from some of the data that we have gathered from our clients. So hopefully this might just help you setting your goals, and you have to obviously kind of relate that to India. All right, so we kind of went through the budget, how much you should spend, how you should spend, and again, the next topic here is very important, right? I mean, what I want to tell you, and you probably know this, is if you don't know where you're going, chances are you'll never get there, right? I mean, what I mean by that is, before you spend any money on marketing, you should absolutely know what your marketing objectives are, right? If you do not set your marketing objectives, then don't spend that money. I mean, first set your objectives. You need to really set your objectives to be successful and to feel good about what you spent and to understand where you spent, right? So what does that mean? So how do you set marketing objectives, right? And what are marketing objectives, right? So again, there are some examples here on the left-hand side. You will see that a marketing objective could be something like you want to build a brand. So let's say you're a new practice. Yeah, I mean, that applies to you. You're building your brand, you're creating that awareness. It could be something like you want to generate leads, or you want to increase your sales. You are in that growth phase and you want to just increase your revenues. Um, you want to convert your leads. It could be also increase your customer loyalty. So there are different marketing objectives that you can set as a practice. Now, the smart way of doing this is any objective or every objective that you set should be as follows, right? It should be S, which is specific. So what I mean by specific, it should be sufficiently detailed. It should not be ambiguous. You should understand what their objective is. You should understand what it means to your business or to your practice. Number two is it should be measurable. I mean, if you cannot measure against their objective, then basically you can't just, you can never tell, right, whether you succeeded or not. So it's important that it is measurable. It should be achievable. Do not, I mean, achievable through marketing efforts, right? So the objectives to be such that you can achieve that using different kinds of marketing strategies. It should be relevant to your business. It should make sense. It should matter to your practice. And very important, it should be time bound. So when you set this, and that's just the acronym that we put here together for a SMART objective: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. When you do the SMART objective, important that you set it for a set period of time, like a month or a quarter or a year, and you should be able to measure against it, right? So that is how you're going to be successful. You got to remember. So do not spend any money unless you have an objective or marketing objectives. And when you're setting marketing objectives, set in such a way that it's smart. That takes us to some examples of what kind of smart marketing objectives you can set. So let's say you want to create your brand. So maybe your objective is that you want to have 1,000 monthly organic visitors to your website in the next 3 months. So again, if you focus on this example, you are very specific about what you're trying to achieve. You are, and it is time bound and it's measurable, right? You're putting a quantity against it. So another example is maybe you want to say that you want to rank on the first page of Google for liposuction, or in any liposuction related keywords, maybe Vaser, 4D, those kind of things. And the list just goes on. I mean, you want to generate 20 new patients every month, increase revenue by 25% in 6 months, etc., etc. Increase patient satisfaction rating by 20%. I mean, that's great too, right? That creates that net promoter score. People are happy with you. They refer their friends, their family, and that's how you grow your business. So having set smart objectives and having set aside some money to spend on marketing, the question comes is, how do you measure if your marketing campaign is successful or not, right? So the tool that you use to measure is called key performance indicators, and it's not just used in medical practice; it's just used in any business across all departments. What is key performance indicator, right? I mean, let's just break it down, right? I mean, key is like something that is important to you. Performance relates to how you are doing, and an indicator is nothing but a metric or a value to measure this performance. So that is really a key performance indicator. Again, examples of KPIs can be like your marketing return on investment, number of incremental sales that you brought in this month, number of new leads that were generated, things like that, right? So a tip for you here is, again, identify your objective, your marketing objective. Select your primary KPI. So select like what is your KPI to measure against that objective, and then map your metrics to your KPI so that you can actually measure and see progress. So that is how you use this tool to measure performance. Now, again, just to look at it another way, right? I mean, if you look at from bottom up, if you look at metrics, metrics will tell you the story behind your KPI. So, for example, let's say if your KPI is to generate X number of leads in a month, or let's say that's your objective, obviously, right? Your objective is to generate X number of leads in a month, and the primary KPI for that, for example, could be the total number of leads that were generated in a month. And then the metrics could be something like cost per lead. So how much are you spending to acquire every lead? What is the lead to prospect ratio? So for example, you're getting all these leads, but how many of them your sales team could actually contact over the phone? That's important. So are they really any prospective leads, or just some contacts who have just contacted you and that's it? The next thing is you could also look at it as where these leads are coming from. So that's another metric that you could measure. And quality score, for example, how likely you think they are going to convert into patients. That is also important. So these metrics really tell you the story behind your KPI. And your KPI is obviously something that is going to measure your objective, right? Your marketing objective. So that's on that. So having said that, let's talk about how do you calculate the patient acquisition cost, and how do you calculate the return on your investment, right? So I'm just going to take some examples here. So let's say that you ran a campaign, and the marketing objective of this campaign was to generate leads. So maybe it's a campaign, email campaign, it could be a Google campaign or Facebook campaign. And it has, so that's your objective. And your KPI is number of leads that you've generated. So let's say that's X, let's say it's 20, for example. So these are the leads that were generated from this campaign where you spend, let's say 3,000. And now out of these 20, let's say 5 of them converted to patients, right? So really, when you're looking at your patient acquisition cost, it is really the cost of marketing, which is 3,000 in this case, divided by the number of patients that got converted, so number of leads that converted to patients, which is 5. So let's say, so in this case, it's like, your patient acquisition cost is 600, right? So that's how you would calculate your patient acquisition cost, right? Not there are some metrics that people use, like cost per lead and cost per conversion. And really what really matters really to you is what is the cost per patient, right? For cost per acquiring a patient. That is what really matters to you. So that's the number that you really need to focus on. And now that you have looked at the cost per patient, now your second thing you should look at is what is the lifetime value of this patient. So you get this patient, let's say for Botox, and they spend Botox and fillers, and they spend, let's say $500 with you, and you know that they are going to come back, and now you can estimate how much is this patient going to spend with my practice in this year. And that is really the lifetime value of this patient, right? I mean, there's so many other examples mostly in this non-invasive kind of treatments where there are recurring sessions. You give them a PRP, you sell a package. So it's really, you got to really look at the total amount that an average patient spends with you annually, and that becomes your lifetime value. Now, the return on investment, when you're calculating return on investment, you have to really calculate that. Okay, let's just say if the patient is spending $2,000 with you in a year, and the cost of acquiring this patient was 600. Now you got a return of 3.33 times, right? So that is how you're looking at this return on investment. I mean, not just when the patient comes to you once, they spend money with you, they're going to come back, and you have to look at it for the whole year. All right, so that is how I see some hands being raised, but I guess we will handle all the questions towards the end, right? Okay, perfect. So having talked about all of that, now let's talk about how do you maximize your ad spend, right? So if you're spending on ads, how do you maximize it? Um, Typically, when you're running ads, you would be running it either on Google, which is the PPC ads, or you'd be running it on a social platform like Facebook or Instagram. Now, you need to recognize that both of these, right? I mean, on Google, people are actively searching for things, and they see your ad and they click on the ad, and they come into your website and they may become your patient, right? So that's the journey of that patient. They're searching, they're looking for something. um, so Google is great platform for lead generation. Now again, when you are looking at Google, try to look at buying long tail keywords. Try to look for transactional keywords, right? Sometimes people are searching on Google just to get information. They're searching for, what does liposuction mean? Okay, I mean, that doesn't really mean that they really want to get liposuction, that they're ready for liposuction yet. They're just trying to learn about liposuction. So those are the keywords. Those are the keywords that I call as non-transactional, where yeah, I mean, you could get some clicks from there, but they may not really convert into patients. So focus on transactional keywords, focus on long tail keywords, and it is really a intent based platform. And if you use it the right way, you will be successful in converting leads into patients on Google. On Facebook, you need to understand that Facebook is a social platform, right? I mean, people are going on their news feed. They don't have anything particularly in mind. They're just browsing through the pictures of their friends and whatnot, and then they see your ad, right? So you got to remember that mindset where they are in that relaxed mode. They are just browsing through the social platform, and I really believe that's the reason where on Facebook, branding or storytelling is a great tactic to use. Now there are ways to also generate leads. I mean, Facebook has evolved as a platform where you can generate leads, you can have conversions, but again, you got to make sure that you are not when you're doing all these the campaigns that you're running on Facebook. Maybe the conversion is that, okay, they're downloading some brochure from you. Okay, you got to keep it light. If you keep it light, you're going to have more success on Facebook, as our experience tells, right? It's a great platform. I mean, it's a great platform for branding. It's a great platform. Facebook knows your interest, right? I mean, it is an interest graph. They know what people like. They know what people don't like. They know where people have checked in. They know where people visit, what food they eat, what dishes they cook, what restaurants they visit, what movies they watch. So it's really an interest graph, and you really need to tap into that part of it when you are running campaigns for Facebook. On the other hand, Google is a knowledge graph, right? I mean, people are trying to search for it to get more information. So that is how you want to look at Google. And if you understand this platforms very well, you will be able to figure out how to optimize the spend between the two. Another great tactic is how do you do cross-platform advertisements, right? So when someone when you know when someone is searching on Google, they see your ad, they go to your page, and then that's it. They probably don't take any action. So now you can build that audience on Facebook. Sorry, you can build that audience on Google, and then target those people on Facebook. So when the same person now is going on Facebook, and now you can show them their ad, because you know that they visited your page, they were searching for you, they were looking at your clinic, they were looking at your brand. So there are some cross-channel tactics, which are retargeting tactics, which optimize this further. right? So that's about the spends. This is just a little picture. I mean, I was talking about marketing software. To our clients, we provide a platform which is on mobile phones. They can check the performance of their campaigns. They can check the cost per conversion. They can check the ROI. So all these calculations that I kind of walked you through earlier, I mean, they're not easy to do for every campaign and every kind of objective that you set. We provide these tools and platform to make it just easy for the clients to check them out and to track them. So this is the screenshot for that. And that takes us to our last slide. I do want to keep enough time for question answers. So let's go to the last slide. I mean, what are the tips to sustain and grow your practice in this period, right? So again, remember I talked about your business cycle. So during this period, right, I mean, things have changed, or things could have changed for you. So you need to go back and reevaluate where you fit in the business cycle. I mean, if you're a multi-clinic, again, think about whether you want to continue running those clinics, close one down, whatever it is, right? So you need to reevaluate your business cycle. It's very important in this period. I have an example. I mean, I have a hair loss clinic client in the US, and this doctor knows that he's not going to get any surgeries anytime soon, maybe through the end of the year for hair transplant. I mean, just because, you know, going for a surgery today in this kind of a scenario, there are a lot of hoops that you have to go through. You have to get tested for COVID. You got to make sure that you're self-quarantining yourself before the surgery, after the surgery. There are a lot of these things that will be causing a lot of friction in terms of people opting for elective surgeries, right, during this period. So again, this client of mine, they realize that that is what is going to happen, and they're preparing for it, right? They're kind of focusing on more of minimally invasive, like PRP or vitamin therapy or IV therapy, you know, different kinds of procedures to kind of adjust their business model for this particular scenario. So that's just one example. Another client I have was a plastic surgeon. They realized that they want to just focus on very advanced aesthetic surgeries, and again, focus on IV, cellular, wellness kind of therapies. So people are making changes to their business model, and this is the time you need to reevaluate and make those changes. You need to revisit your marketing objectives. Again, since your business model is going to change, or maybe it might change, again, revisit your marketing objectives, revisit what KPI you are using and metrics. And again, I talked about value investing, right? So that is another great point for this period. I mean, look around yourself, and you'll see that brands are pulling out of ads. Maybe it's a good time to run some ads, invest in some ads now. If you have the money to do it, you're going to get good ad rates. So invest in your assets, invest in building your assets, your website, your pages, or your YouTube channels, or your lists, or your email list that you're sitting on, or patient list. So with this, I think this concludes the presentation part of the session, and I'm going to turn it over to Shriyal for question answers. And let me just stop my share. There you go. All right.
Yes, thank you, Harshal. That was a great, insightful presentation, and I've seen a lot of questions coming in right from the beginning of the session. While I'm going to take the questions now, for all the attendees, this is your time to please key in your questions into the Q&A box, and we would be addressing them now through the session. So just to begin with the question that came in right at the start, how much for print media and digital marketing? I guess the question is coming from the background that how much should the focus be on print media and how much should it be on digital marketing?
Sure. So to answer that question, see, print media, the difference between print media and digital media is print media you cannot measure. You really cannot target accurately, and you cannot measure accurately. In digital world, you can precisely target who you want to, who's your patient or who's your targeted patients, and you can measure all of that. So having said that, right, I mean, again, the price of print media is different from the price of digital. Uh, Having said that, take a look at your business cycle, and if you are a mature business and you have a lot of money set aside for marketing, yes, go ahead with print media, right? I mean, go spend how much you should spend on print and digital. Again, marketing is an investment. So if you are getting returns more on print, which I don't know if you are, and I'm really not sure, but if you're getting returns on print, yes, go ahead with that. If you're getting returns on digital, go ahead and invest in that. So really, there's no set number of how much you should, what percentage you spend on print and what percentage you spend on digital.
In the COVID situation, advertising is cheap now, but how can it be a value investment, as you said, as no client can come out to take your services? So, if you can elaborate on that.
Sure. So that's a great question. And so basically what you're asking is what do you advertise on in these times? I mean, my clinic is closed. I'm not able to do any procedures. So I'm not able to provide any kind of service as such because I'm home, they're home. So what do you advertise on, right? That's the question. Um, there are some things that some of my clients are doing, some of the other doctors are doing in the industry. They are doing virtual consultations. So I mean, obviously your clinic is closed, but they are giving out consultations, which they charge a small fee for that. Um, Now I don't know. This is from the party. I don't know what your specialty is, but let's say whatever you are, you're a dermat or a plastic surgeon. I understand that if you're a dermat, maybe over the virtual consultations, you may be able to prescribe some medicines to them. So you might be able to do some kind of treatment. If you're a plastic surgeon, yeah, you cannot do any surgeries. But this is where you are growing your lead pool. You know, the lead pool that I talked about before. I mean, this is a patient that you are answering their questions, giving them consultations, offering those kind of services. Um, and they're going to come back to you, right? They're going to come back to you when things open up because you're building that relationship. So yes, I mean, in terms of advertising, yeah, I mean, there are limited things. If you have a retail revenue, another example is some of the aesthetic practices, they sell products. If you can sell those products online, yeah, advertise for that, right? I mean, spend money on advertising to promote those products where people can go online and buy them. So there are some of these ideas. I don't know if I answered that question, but wait.
What is your recent conclusion of the last 1 year? What works best for cosmetic surgery practice as far as marketing on social media is concerned? So the question is from Dr. Vishal Patil, and if you could respond in terms of what would be like the most important, so number one, number two, etc., for the platforms that you suggest.
So marketing on social media and conclusion of one last 1 year, what works best for marketing? Okay, so it's a surgical practice, right? You're
Yes.
talking about a surgical practice and you're talking about marketing on social media. What are your priorities? Number one, number two. Um, Again, as I said, right? I mean, social platforms are different, right? Where people, Instagram, people are using a lot of Instagram. People are using a lot of Facebook. In terms of when you say priorities, I'm going to assume what is the approach that you're going to spend that money on, right? How you're going to spend that money on. And conclusion of one last year. Well, that's a long period. So these are good things. So I mean, you need to understand that as a surgery patient, the cycles are longer, right? If someone is trying to look for a cosmetic surgeon for a cosmetic procedure, first of all, they're going to spend a lot of money, and secondly, because of that, they're going to do a lot of research. Now, if you can spend on social media marketing, which is not advertising, but really marketing, so just putting out posts, getting their engagement with them, um, educating them on different procedures, cross promoting certain things. These are the different things that I would prioritize. And there's number one, number two. I mean, it's really, if your focus is just surgical practice, think about what you do the best. I mean, again, in these times, um, you are going to have your patient pool is going to shrink for sure, right? So you got to make sure that you also shrink your services and try to narrow down on things that you are the best. Because see, for the thing that you are the best, people are going to come to you.
What is the coming time like for next 1 year for aesthetic medicine practice?
What is the coming time in the sense? What is the outlook, maybe,
Yeah,
or
I
how does it
think
look like?
what he means here
Yeah.
is the outlook for the next 1 year.
So the outlook is, again, it's not very rosy. I'm not going to lie to you, right? It's not what it was before March, right? So when everyone started with 2020, um, people said, yes, this is the year 2020. They were in Jan and Feb, and they were going all full force. And then this is what got hit with COVID globally, somewhere around end of Feb and March. It started becoming serious. Things, we are going to return back to normal, obviously, very soon enough, but it's going to be a new normal. Um, but having said all of that, right? I mean, the whole aesthetic medicine practice. I mean, this is not going to. It's not that there's still a lot of potential for the aesthetic medical practice, right? If you looked at that chart that I showed you in terms of the business cycles, I mean, people had some projections. Whatever phase you were in, whether you're on a startup or mature or growth, everybody is going to slide down, right? Everybody is going to be in the same boat. So you have to just kind of look out again, as I said, focus on things that you do the best, and you will get the results, right? And that's what I would say.
With the goal being increasing patient satisfaction, how can it be achieved by advertisement?
So if it's a patient satisfaction, see, when I talked about marketing budget, don't just think about advertisements. So it's two different things. I mean, maybe that's the confusion. Advertisements is the money that you spend on running ads on Google and Facebook, but that's just limited to that. What is marketing really is, emailing, email marketing is part of it, writing content, calling them, reaching out to them. So patient satisfaction. So let's say you have your patients coming in, or let's say, you reach out to all your patients that you have for today and ask them how they're doing. What would they like? Were they satisfied? Do you do that today? That's the question, right? Your patient walks into your clinic, does a procedure. Do you follow up? Do you send them, ask them to give you a review? Do you ask them, are they satisfied? Do you ask them for a feedback? So that is something that you need to invest in general, right? That's not per se advertising. That's just part of your whole marketing strategy.
Uh, what do you do when all marketing strategies get to a plateau? And then we feel now that marketing has done what it would do, but then what next? So, all in all, how do you keep the ball rolling for marketing?
So when all marketing strategies, so again, remember, marketing is an investment. If you look at marketing as an investment, if you look at your assets, right? So remember that your assets are your website, your Facebook page, your YouTube page, YouTube channel, your database. If you focus on building those assets and growing those assets, um, then that is the main strategy that you really need to follow here, right? I mean, it's not about, and again, when all strategies get to a plateau, I don't understand exactly what that means, but you're trying to say that you're trying to do a lot of things, but you're not getting results, right? And
Yeah.
that's correct. So again, as I said, there are good investments and bad investments. During this period, you really need to realize what are you going to invest in, right? And what I want to say is you got to keep the ball rolling by investing in your assets. So again, there was some other question previously where how do I spend on ads when I'm not doing any services? Yeah, I mean, if you're not providing any services, don't spend on ads. I'm not saying spend on ads, but you have to spend on marketing. You got to spend on your SEO. You got to spend on your website. You got to spend on your content building. You know, to spend on your database building. Those things are still required.
Okay. So, what really is the relation between SEO and ROI, and how important is it to
Yeah,
spend on SEO?
great question. Great question. So SEO is, again, search engine optimization, where your website ranks on Google's first page, right? If it ranks on Google's first page, that is where you're going to start getting that traffic, right? Now, you are spending money on SEO, right? You're spending money with your marketing agency, and if your marketing agency is not showing results, and that's bad. But if they're showing results and now you're ranking on first page, now remember that the traffic that you're getting from organically, right, from that click on the first page, if you look at how that traffic looks like, how much time people are spending on your website when they come from the organic traffic, how much serious are they, what kind of forms are they filling out, what kind of leads are generated from that traffic, how many leads are converting from that traffic. Now that is all the return on the investment, right? I mean, you're not really advertising, but you're building your asset, you're building your website, you're building its ranking. And if you have to really equate it, think about, if you're running Google ads, you're paying by every click, right? So in 6 months, if you're getting 1,000 users to your website, and monthly users, they clicking on your link and coming to your website, and let's say if the cost per click is India terms, let's say it's 20 rupees, for example. So it's 20,000 rupees, right there. I'm just giving an example. I mean, that's how you would really try to look at what monetary benefit SEO is giving you. It is really the visits that SEO is giving you multiplied by the average cost per click. That's the amount of money that you got in return for your SEO investment.
Apart from Google, which is a better platform for marketing, Facebook or Instagram?
Apart both of you need both, right? You need Google and Facebook. As I remember, I said, these are different platforms. But again, if you want to talk about whether Facebook or Instagram, between the two, I mean, again, when you run ads on Facebook, you're automatically running them on Instagram, or you have the choice to run it on Instagram. It depends on your demographic, right? I mean, if you're trying to reach out to a younger audience for acne related, you're a dermat and you're having treatments for acne, pigmentation, or any of those sorts of things, or if you're, let's say, a trichologist and you're trying to have any hair loss treatments, so then your demographics are different, right? I mean, the people who are losing hair, maybe they're a little older, maybe they're on Facebook. People who are acne problems, they are teenagers and they are on Instagram, and that is how you really decide which platform to use.
Is it possible to grow business without advertising or marketing?
uh, it is not possible to grow business without marketing. I mean, especially if you're in the aesthetic industry, these are all elective procedures. And it's not possible to grow any business without marketing. Let me just say that, right? Because marketing is a core aspect of any business that you run, right? So again, the difference between marketing and advertising is running ads, right? Spending that money and running your ad, which is just one piece of the whole marketing activities that you would do. So the short answer is no, you have to do marketing for sure. And when I say marketing, yeah, you got to build your assets. You need to, website is your single most marketing asset, digital marketing asset, right? If you don't have a website, I mean, that's it, right? Nobody can come to you online. Nobody can know you online. So you have to invest in those things. Whether to invest in ads or not, again, depends on what you are into right now, right? I mean, you're into your home. You're not providing any services. There's no point running any ads at this point, unless you are doing it for branding. So that's another thing. So if you're branding your creating your brand, creating your awareness, you're not expecting any conversions out of it right away, yeah, go ahead and do it.
If everyone is going to wear a mask, what would they want to would they want to improve the facial appearance, and would they go for cosmetic improvement?
That's something that the doctor should answer. It's not my expertise. No, really. I mean, I help doctors with marketing, but this is really a question where, yeah, if everyone's going to wear a mask, what would they want to improve in their facial appearance? Yes, I mean, that's a correct statement. They would probably don't have to do anything, but it's really a question that the doctors have to answer.
What is your opinion on do it yourself, the DIY website builder instead of a professional agency?
There are some platforms like the Wix platform. I mean, you just drag and drop, and it's a good way of getting started. But see, remember, your practice is a little different from other small businesses. I mean, you're not like those things are good for, let's say, restaurants, small restaurants, because what happens there is they create the website once and they have a menu and that's it, right? People really don't. It's just to give them some presence online. Your practice is different. Your practice, or the website for your practice is different, right? It's evolving, right? You have some stories to tell, your patient stories to share, before and after pictures to share, your approaches, your different services. Again, the way people will find you today is only, I mean, online is the only way people are going to find you, right? Especially in the aesthetic industry, since everything is elective, you're not going to get referred by my family doctor is not going to refer me. I'm not going to go to my family doctor for any kind of aesthetic concerns that I have anyways. So there are no referrals coming from doctors or from insurance companies or whatever that might be. So I think, again, as I said, since it's a most important asset that you would create in terms of marketing, I think you should invest a little bit more time and money on it than just a do it yourself website. So yes, you should hire the right agency, or we've helped our clients really create unique websites for their practices and help them rank on first page, right? That is how people are going to find you. So don't undermine that, right? I mean, do invest. It's your important asset.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you so much, Harshal, for joining us today. And before we end this session, I would like to share an update on the next session that we have this Thursday. We have Dr. Sonia Tekchandani joining us on Thursday at 6 p.m., that is May 21st, for a session on three-dimensional approach to anti-aging. So please block your calendars. You all would get an registration link invite from us very soon. So you all could register and join us for this session as well. And once again, thank you all our attendees for being with us today. Thank you, Harshal, and we'll see you again next Tuesday, the following Tuesday at 6:30 p.m.
Yes,
for
yes.
our last
So
session of the series.
six. That is right. Yeah. So do join us next Tuesday at 6:30 again. We are going to talk about annual marketing plan and how to become profitable. So that's the most important thing, right? You need to look for profits, particularly at this time. So
Yeah, a last
thank you.
question before we sign off. Do you have a presence in India? One of the attendees want to know.
Yes, we have an office in Pune, and we have many clients in India. We have
Great.
clients in Mumbai, Pune, Lucknow, Baroda, Surat, a lot of places.
Great. So have a good evening, all of you, and have a good day. Harshal, you have a long day ahead while our
Th-
days come to an end. But yeah, thank you so much for this evening. If you all want to catch up with the session again, like I always say, the recorded sessions are on our website, aestheticmed.in. So please do log in for all our webinar recordings. And when you're logged in, you go to our YouTube page. So do not forget to subscribe. We also have all updates on our upcoming webinars on our Facebook and Instagram page. So do like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and you would be right there with us with all our upcoming sessions. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care, stay safe. Thank you, Harshal. See you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.